The mind has a tendency to make assumptions before we truly investigate a situation. A simple example would be when we're having a conversation with someone else. They're speaking, they're sharing their perspective or their opinion or information, and our mind is already making assumptions about what they're going to say before we truly hear what they're saying and truly listen. Developing the habit of curiosity can help us counteract this tendency of the mind to make assumptions. Habits are made up of three parts. There's the cue, like a stressor. Then we go through a routine to process that stress or deal with that stress or avoid the stress. And then we have a reward. And the reward is relief from the stress. And the whole habit cycle is driven by our comfort motivation. So it's important to look at a habit cycle like this, or a cycle in general, and see if we can determine what can we change and control and what can't we change and control. So you think about the cue, okay, stress. Stress is inevitable. Life is stressful. It has some stressful aspects to it. We can't get rid of it, so we can't change that fact. The reward also, like relief from the stress, can't be changed. We need relief from the stress at some point. The motivation, that comfort motivation that's driving the whole system, that's very natural also and can't be changed. So what we can change and what we can control is routine. And developing the routine of how we process that stress is how we can focus our attention to be able to work through it. And this is what the habit of curiosity is all about. It's going to help us deal with the mind's natural tendency to make those assumptions. And it begins by being more interested in what you're investigating than in what you think you know. And I'd like to dig into this habit of curiosity by reading a passage from The Intuitive Body by Wendy Palmer, right here. For me, the spiritual worth lies not in the answer, but in the fantastic sense of readiness, the intense here and now of expectancy, the instant before we know, when we are still in a state of openness. What Wendy is expressing is kind of a mindset that positions us for being able to be curious. But she talks about expectancy. So we need to understand how to relate to expectations. And typically we think of expectations as being end results. I expect to succeed, or I expect to make progress. And we can also have process expectations. So both can be helpful. With the end result expectations, though, it's helpful if we don't put a timestamp on it. So, for example, you say, I expect to know, or I expect to succeed, but at some point in the future that I don't know. In other words, we don't know how much time it's going to take, how much practice or training to learn what we need to learn in order to achieve a goal. So we don't put a timestamp on end result expectations. But process expectations are basically about exerting effort and how we focus our attention. So we can also have these kinds of expectations that are going to require effort on our part. So I expect to exert effort and focus my attention as best I can on the task. So the habit of curiosity has 5 steps. The first one is awareness. We need to be aware of this tendency of the mind to kind of resolve stress too quickly, to seek certainty, or to make these kinds of assumptions. That's the first step that we need to make. The second step is to pause, to wait, to not do anything, to, in a sense, relax into not knowing, into the stress that is in the situation or the struggle. The third step is to change the flow of our attention. Generally, attention stays in the mind, dwelling on what we think we know, making those assumptions. So we change the flow of our attention out of thinking into our senses and into our body, into the external situation, toward what we're investigating. The fourth step is to blend with the situation. Now, we have a tendency to think in black and white, or all or nothing, or either or. And so that kind of directs our attention to only one aspect of a situation. So we can blend with a situation better if we have a both and perspective. And what that means is we both accept the situation as it is, that stress that's going to be there, and we resolve to investigate it so that we can work our way through it. And the fifth step is to make a small action step. Now, this step has to be small enough to where you can take action now. That's really important. You need to be able to take action now and expect that you'll discover something. I found that the hardest step in all of this is the first one, awareness. Developing awareness is always foundational to mental training. So it can be helpful to put reminders around so that you can become more aware all through your day. It can be on your computer. I use a little reminder bracelet that kind of irritates me, but something that you can be reminded of continually. So that's the lesson. You can go to warriorsway.com to check out the full text for this lesson. You can also check out our books and our courses. If you're intrigued by how we approach mental training, reach out to us. We'd love to work with you. Thank you.